Welcome to Paint Along at the Plainfield-Guilford Township Public Library. In this program, we will paint step by step a seasonal landscape. You can refer to one of our previous videos for a materials list. Keep in mind, anytime during this video you can pause to catch up, or you can even skip to the end and see the finished product. So have fun, come paint with us. To begin, we're going to design our composition. So first of all, as you can see, I have a photo that I took here locally. It's just a beautiful little field, but I want to talk to you a little bit about the design elements here that we're going to use to move our eye through the painting. You can see with this particular composition, there are flowers here in the foreground that form a beautiful zigzag, taking us back into the back part of the painting. All right, and I don't know if you can tell, but there are these wonderful planes of value. So that's basically the kind of composition. It's just a Z composition. Sometimes it's called an S composition. It's going to move our eye back into the field, into the back part of the painting. I invite you to take a screenshot now. I have a simple canvas board here that I have toned with pink acrylic. And the reason I chose pink, because I want this to have the feeling of a spring type time of year, and that's the feeling that we're going to be going for in this painting. But the real reason that I chose pink over any other color is you can see there's a lot of green in this painting. And on our color wheel, pink and reds, pinks and reds, are the opposite of green on the color wheel. So by putting an undertone of pink under there, that's going to really make the colors vibrate and will give it more interest. It will certainly spark interest in the painting. We're going to begin by sketching in our design. So I want to point out a few things here within our element, within our painting. The first thing I like to look for is the horizon line. And as you can see, the horizon of this painting is going to be right about here. So we'll say right back in this area. Okay. So, and I can see that that's really just about halfway. We could either move it up or we could move it down. I don't know that it necessarily matters in this one, but because I find the foreground so interesting with the flowers, we're going to, I think, maybe bump it up just a little bit. So I want our horizon line to be maybe just 3/4 of the way down. I'm going to mix up a really quick gray. I usually don't add a lot of black to my palette. However, today I'm going to do a lot of green, and one of my favorite greens is done by mixing black and yellow. You get a beautiful olive green that way. So mixing up a little gray just to do a little sketching in, just a neutral gray. So I want to have, I can tell you that this brush is much too soft. I want something with a little more backbone to it. All right, so my horizon line, I'm going to be just up above center. Just going to sketch that across, just so I kind of have an idea of where it is. All right. So the other shapes that I'm seeing, first of all, this tree is massive. I'm going to first of all cut into it a bit so that it doesn't look like such a big round blob. So I'm going to just kind of go up and down, and it doesn't have to be that round shape. It's just a little too solid. So I'm just going to bring that down and up. I see another shape here. And I don't want to echo these round and round and round. That would not, it just wouldn't work as well. It's going to be a much more interesting painting if we kind of mix up some of the shapes. And then here we'll give there's another. Okay, good enough. Now over here we have a massive block of this really dark green, so I want to block that in. darkness to that gray. Now we've got a beautiful some verticals of these trees. Just going to kind of place them. They don't have to be perfect, and we can certainly do some changing if we like in a bit. Okay. Now I'm going to do just kind of some indications of these planes. So we've got, if this is our horizon line, here's our horizon line. We've got a little bit of a tree bump coming out here. And something coming back in here. Okay. Then we've got a beautiful grassy knoll right there. Got another indication of this darker green, kind of a square, or excuse me, a triangle coming down in here, giving the indication of some of these lines that I see here and here. I see another triangle here and here, here and here. Here we have another triangle of these flowers here, 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 here. Okay. Okay. All right, so there's a lot going on here, but by the time we get those dark values in there, it will work. Begin. So we're going to begin by blocking in the basic shapes, the basic colors that we see. Call that local color, the color that you when you squint your eyes, the color that you're seeing there. That's what we're going to be putting on our board now to kind of fill in this pink. So let's begin with the sky. I'm taking just a little touch of blue. As you can see, it's almost a gray day in the photo, but I think we can, again, I want to go for a spring feeling, so we're going to give it just a little bit more blue. All right, so I always like to start up at the top. Doing a few just little sky holes here. We can go back in later and do some more details with that. So our sky is in well enough now. I'm going to start now to do some really far, far away things by making this a little bit more of a violet. So to get purple, I'm going to mix red and our primary of red and blue, and that will give us purple. So a little red, a little blue. Give it just a little bit, pulling a little white into that. A little more blue into that. Just kind of putting that way back there in the background as if those are trees that are just very far away on the horizon. Okay, now we're ready to work on some of the greens. The greens that are so far away are going to have a lot of blue in them. They're going to be very muted and grayed and bluish almost. So I'm going to mix a little of this yellow and just a tiny bit of this blue to give us a green. And I've still got some of this purple on my brush, just mixing that in to tone it down and make it a little bit more neutral. Pulling some of that in. Perfect. All right, and that's the color that I want to use right back in here. Right back in here. This is really a really nice blue. As I said, it's kind of muted. Got a little red in it. Kind of warm. Added a little more blue just to make it very cool, kind of a cool neutral gray. That's what we're going to do back in this area. You can see it's a little bit darker green, kind of an evergreen almost, because this area is kind of in shadow. That top area, I just painted over that, so I'll fix that here in just a moment. This is in shadow, adding more yellow and more white. I want to brighten it up a bit. There we are. That's a little bit, that's more what I had in mind. Now let's put that there. See that little triangle shape that we have here? All right. So let's go ahead and let's begin now. I'm going to start to work on filling in the shapes of these trees. I want to mix up some of that olive that I told you about. So I'm taking a chunk of black along with a good amount of yellow. So yellow and black make this olive green. It's a good basic green, olive green to go with. Just filling in, just going to block in a little bit. You'll notice the areas in shadow are going to be very cool. So we're going to indicate that. I'm going to add blue to this to take it in the direction of a really cool green. See how that changed? All right. This area right here, see these spots? These spots are in shadow, especially right in this area. Have the same color over here, a really deep evergreen. Just filling in shapes. Got a few little spots of darkness down in here. Again, that's going to just define that zigzag that we had going earlier so that we don't lose it. Sometimes I like to just put shadow in the corners because that's going to lead your eye into the painting. So we're just going to darken these corners a bit since we again, you can see how it serves to frame your painting a bit. All right, then we're going to go with some brighter greens. A little yellow and blue. Now, if you have more blue in your painting, it's going to look more of an evergreen, deep, deep green. More yellow is going to take it more in a much warmer tone. I'm going to add just a touch of red. Red takes it in the direction of a brown. Added too much. So, since I added too much, I'm going to add more yellow and more blue. But that's all right because I've got a lot of green to paint. Add some more white to that over here. There's some really nice greens. All right, so I think I want to add just a little more yellow to some of it. So for this one, of that here. Gonna go more in that over there. Now I'm going to start working on brightening some of that up a little bit. Start to work into the foreground. That is too dark, too blue. Let's add more yellow to that. There we are. That's a little bit more of what I want. So we've been blocking in the basic shapes of local color. Now we're going to start to add details with a smaller brush. All right, now for the details. I'm going to go back up into the sky and I'm just going to, a lot of my paint is dry. I'm going to add some more white to that with the tiniest hit of pink. Tiniest hit of blue. All right, starting at the horizon, as things get a little bit closer to the horizon, usually it will get a little warmer. some of that green a little bit just to mix it. With a liner brush, I'm going to work into some of that gray that I had. A liner brush is long and thin, really great for doing tree trunks. I'll work into a little gray. I want it to be nice and fluid, so I'm going to add a little bit more water. All right, starting at the base of the trunk, I'm just going to apply that and just kind of wiggle it up, twist it up a little bit. A little too much water there on that one spot. I'm going to do the same thing here. Now, if you like, I could take this kind of a greenish blue that I had. I'm going to add a tiny bit of red to it, taking it more in the direction of a brown. Add a little bit of that black. Just some spring, pull some of those limbs out. A little more fluid here. There we are. That's more what I want. Going to kind of make some various, just really loose tree limbs. Going back with a dry brush and just going to soften that a bit. Still a little bit damp, just softening. I want the indication of these tree trunks, but I don't really want to look at them too precisely. Now, with that small brush again, I'm going to go back in with some of the greens of the leaves. Just kind of work over some of that. A little bit of highlights of that lighter green where the sun is kind of hitting it. There we are. Taking some of that color down here. And into that shrub. While my paint is wet, I'm going to go back into that blue. I'm going to just define some of that. Well, I need to make it more blue. I'm going to define some of that space and just do some negative space there in those tree limbs. So right here. It's one of my favorite parts of doing trees, painting that negative space. All right, getting a nice finish there. Now we're going to go in and work on these trees with the details. Let's go back in with some brighter greens. I want to add a little more blue to that. Pull in some of that white, a little more yellow. that's just a little dark. Let's go in on top of that evergreen color and add some of that. That actually is adding some depth here. Okay. Gonna add some more of that down in here. Just a bit. Okay. I want to do this brighter green here. So to do that, I need to add a little more yellow and certainly more white. Here we are. That's a little more of what I want. I think I want just the tiniest touch of red. I don't want to get too crazy with that red. I've been doing a little too much of that. There we go. That's nice and warm. That's kind of what I have in mind. Don't want to cover the whole area with it. I want to leave some of those little spots kind of peeking through. Defining that. All right, going to add some more of that to this tree now. It does need some trunks in there though. To do that, I'm going to pick up that liner brush that I have, come back over here and pick up some of that brown gray, pulling some tree limbs into it. I'm going to do the same over here, a couple of those. Okay. Let's continue to add more leaves right over here. So we're going to go here. And I'm just kind of twisting, as you can see, just kind of wiggling that brush. And all right, so I want to go now more in the direction of a Kelly green, more of a little more blue in that. Little bit of, I'm going to start with some purple, and now we're going to take that a little yellow into it, see what we get. Still a little too dull. I think I want something a little brighter. Let's play with that. Just a little of this. Yeah, I still keep coming back to that. All right, let's kind of come in here. Adding some of that beautiful lush green that we're starting to see. It is springtime after all. I might be going just a little dark with some of this. I think really that spring green is really very nice. Just using an upward stroke just to kind of indicate those grasses that are growing there. I'm going to go just a little more blue where those flowers are. And now here in the foreground, it's a little brighter. The last part that I love, I'm going to put in some of these little bits of yellow flowers and the white flowers. So with the yellow, it looks pretty. Well, I'm going to wipe my brush. Have a lot of green on there. All right. Let's begin. A little yellow, a little white. I'm going to soften that yellow just a little bit. It's just pretty intense. So I just see a little right in here. Right in here. A little there. A little back in here in the trees. Maybe back in here. We'll just pretend, we'll just imagine that we see some of it. You can put a little more here and there. All right, and then we have a lot of white indicated here. So let's go in. I don't think we want it to be fully white, so there's a little blue in this. And a little green even. But I think when we get it on the board here, it's going to actually look white. So we're just going to, with the side of our brush, just kind of indicate some. See how white that looks? Even so, I think it needs to be toned down a bit more. There we are. Maybe a little more gray would be better. Here and there. I think that pretty much does it. Just a little, just indications. All right. Before I finish, I want to finish up that corner, this evergreen. I'm not pleased with the way that looks, so I'm just going to kind of indicate. It's got a lot of blue in that paint. Let's pull that back in. I'm going to indicate some of these dark and lighter areas. Here and here. Join us next time and paint along.